Hello, I'm Mike Butterworth, Director of the Center for Sports Communication and Media at the University of Texas at Austin. It's my honor to welcome you to our virtual celebration for the winners of the 2021 Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sportswriting. Each year, we have the privilege of recognizing winners in two categories, one for annual achievement and one for lifetime achievement. Our previous annual winners include Wright Thompson, Chris Ballard, Dave SHEININ, Sarah Spain, and Liz MERRILL. And our lifetime winners include Frank DeFord, Dave KINDRED, Gary Smith, and Rick TELANDER. We are delighted to recognize our 2021 winners, Mitchell S. Jackson and Roger Angell. In addition to celebrating our medal winners, we're also thrilled to announce our 2021 Jenkins Medal Sports Legend, Earl Campbell. Our inaugural Jenkins legend was golfer Jack Nicklaus, and we couldn't be happier to recognize a legendary Longhorn with this year's distinction. We'll hear more about and from each of our honorees very soon. First, please let me acknowledge the many people who helped make the Jenkins Medal happen. We want to thank the leadership of the Moody College of Communication, including our dean, Dr. Jay Bernhardt, the department chairs and school directors, and our associate center directors, Dr. Natalie Brown-Devlin and Kevin Robbins, for their support of the Center for Sports Communication and Media. Thanks as well to our center's advisory council and our extended network of colleagues in sports media. We also want to acknowledge the generous gifts that have supported the Jenkins Medal ceremonies and our two donors who have endowed the medals themselves, Tex Moncrief and Andy Priest. We are also grateful to Dan Jenkins and his family, in particular June Jenkins, for letting us play a role in their lives and for their support of this award. And a shout out to our panel of jurists who curated nominations and selected this year's winners. Our annual writing jury includes Kevin Blackistone, Kirk Bowles, Brian Curtis, Melanie Hauser, Kathleen McElroy, Kevin Robbins, John Walsh, Gene Wojciechowski, Grant Wall, and Alexander Wolf. Our lifetime achievement jury includes Chuck Culpepper, Gerald Early, Vahe Gregorian, Will Leach, Joe Poznansky, Steve Russian, Wright Thompson, and Seth Wickersham. Both juries are co-chaired by Sally Jenkins and Michael McCambridge. Now, before we begin our program, I'd like to introduce Michael McCambridge to share more about Dan Jenkins and the Jenkins Medal. A former writer for the Austin American-Statesman, Michael is an award-winning author of several books, including The Celebrated History of Professional Football, America's Game, and The Definitive History of Sports Illustrated, The Franchise. Michael, take it away.
When I was growing up in Kansas City in the 1970s, there were two forms of artistic contraband that I had to smuggle into my mother's home. They were the albums of Richard Pryor and the novels of Dan Jenkins. It was worth the risk. In both cases, the works in question were profane, relentlessly funny, and also keenly observant of the human condition. It was Jenkins' work that struck me most deeply. Like a lot of readers, I'd fallen in love with his writing in the pages of Sports Illustrated. It was the humor that you noticed first. But for me, the genius of Jenkins, the way he placed sports in the context of the larger world. This was crucial. It's easy to forget how marginalized much of the 20th century, how within so much of society it was dismissed as a triviality. But in the pages of SI, and later in his novels, Dan presented a worldview that refuted all of that. Fully rounded individual, a worldly man, influenced and thinkers of his time, conversant with current events in politics, culture, and the arts. And yet none of this prevented him from understanding that a big football game or the final round of a major golf tournament is like a matter of life and death. And not just to the participants, also to the observers. This combination of his wide-ranging cultural literacy and understanding of the significant role of sports in modern American life, and his ability to convey both the seriousness of the event while also poking fun at it, was unprecedented. In short, after Dan Jenkins, you didn't apologize for being a sports fan. His influence can still be felt today. Writing is practiced. which is why I've been so pleased to work with the University of Texas and serve, along with the great Sally Jenkins, as co-chair of the jury for the Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sportswriting. Again, we will honor 2 master practitioners of the craft. Thanks for watching, and thanks for reading.
Thank you, Michael. We know that Dan's legacy can be seen and felt in your work, in the work of Sally Jenkins, and in the countless others who have been inspired by Dan's wit and artful prose. On behalf of the Center for Sports Communication and Media, let me again thank you and Sally for your time and energy in shepherding this award. Now, we begin our program with a feature we inaugurated at our 2019 ceremony in Fort Worth. The idea behind the Jenkins Medal Legend is to celebrate the craft of sports writing through the figures that help bring it alive. And few athletes have provided as much material for the sports writer's pen as Earl Campbell. Campbell came to the University of Texas in 1974, where he set the standard for great running backs for generations to come. The capstone of his stellar career came in 1977, when he rushed for over 1,700 yards, scored 18 touchdowns, and won the Heisman Trophy as the star of a memorable Longhorns team. He cemented his legendary status in the NFL, becoming one of the most formidable and dominating backs the league has ever seen. Sports writer Jim Murray called Campbell fearless, powerful, confident. He wasn't nifty. He didn't run around you. He ran through you. And fellow writer Lee Jenkins declared that Campbell defined mesquite, tough masculinity for a generation in Texas and beyond. In the years since his retirement, Campbell has remained a fixture in the game, serves as an advisor to the University of Texas Athletics, and is a proud alumnus of the Moody College of Communication. In this conversation, he is joined by his fellow Tyler, Texas native, Cedric Golden. Golden is host of the Longhorn Confidential podcast and sports columnist for the Austin American-Statesman. Cedric, Earl, it's all yours.
He's a Hall of Famer in college and pro, the 1979 NFL League MVP, and in my opinion, the greatest Longhorn ever. And my fellow Tyler Wright, Earl Christian Campbell, joins us. How are you today, sir?
Well, I'm doing good, man. It's good to see you.
Man, it's good to see you too. You know, you were nicknamed the Tyler Rose, and you earned that nickname because both of us grew up working in Tyler Rose fields. Working those long summers, you and your 10 siblings and your parents, how did that help sharpen your work ethic for what was going to come later on the football field?
My mom and dad had 11 children, and they had like 7 boys and 4 girls. And I'm not like number 7 or 6 in the family, but even back then, in 5th grade, I was dreaming about doing things like God blessed me to do on the football field. I knew that from Jump Street, and my whole family knew it. Mm-hmm. My oldest sister, Evelyn, bless her heart, who's dead and gone now, she used to say, "You better make it that football, boy, you sorry." But the amazing thing is, I think being raised like that out in the country and East Texas sand, and I think that's where it all started. No doubtly, that is what taught me not just about football, but how to respect another man, how to, you know, back then your coaches was your idol, you know, and all that. So I think that's even worked into me being the man I am today.
Well, I know you lost your dad at an early age, like you were like 11 years old, and you were blessed to have some great men, role models in your life. If you would tell our audience about Lawrence LaQuire, one of your first coaches.
I think when I started maturing into a man or thinking about, you know, doing things, and I went to Moore Junior High and I bumped into a guy named Lawrence LaQuire, and Coach LaQuire was a father I didn't have on a daily basis, you know, a man in my house. So that's when it all started.
Coach LaQuire taught you the value of,
yes,
as a running back,
yes,
of how to use your hands. That little move where you put your hand on the ground to keep your balance.
And then, I mean, that was so much to LaQuire. He was way before his time. I mean, things like there's a drill that you can jump on one leg, and while you're in the air, you change hands and you land there, and just little things like that. You know, it was unbelievable. I wanted to be a middle linebacker. I thought I was the next Black Dick Buckers. That's what I really wanted to do. And Coach LaGuire conned me, and him and Coach Nelson that conned me into trying to be a running back in practice. And that's why coaches know more than you do as a student, you know. So the rest is history, and I played.
So 1973, you lead the Lions to a state championship over Austin Reagan.
Yes.
And every coach in America wants you. And Switzer, I'm sure, offered the world because he's talked about it over the years. He said, I asked his mom, whatever you want, we'll bring it.
Well, you know, which is a great guy, you know, and there's some other great coaches, but Switzer was one of those guys coming to the front door talking all this. And he didn't say nothing bad. He didn't belittle me or anything, but it was just something about Texas. And the best thing was for me to just come to Austin. Somehow I didn't see Oklahoma fitting me. I mean, it was just, maybe the country and me and the school, Texas and all, it just fit. So looking back, it was the best thing.
Yeah, and the legendary Ken Dabbs.
Oh, yeah.
Spent a week in Tyler at a local hotel, and he was,
I'm going to tell you, Coach
put on
Dabbs,
full court press.
I don't know, but Coach Dabbs, like, he just had that charisma about you, and he wasn't talking all that, what they was going to do and how you was going to do it, just bone dry. Texas, we got the best food you can eat. We get you more tutors as you need, and you're going to go to school. You're going to get an education. And I, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, gee, I'd like to be the first person in my family to get a college degree. Mm-hmm. And Barry Sosa didn't know I was thinking that kind of thing, you know, but like I said, the best thing was Texas, and I do not regret it to this day.
You got that communications degree from the University of Texas, and you always list that as your number one accomplishment.
How I got involved in communication, Roosevelt Leaks was still here in school, you know, it was his senior year. And somehow I heard him talking about taking some easy classes. And I said, that'd be cool. So how about go to communication? So that's what I did. That Monday, this little redheaded lady from England, you know, she got up and she says, I tell you what, everybody that last name end in C, I want you to get up and give me a 5-minute speech on Wednesday. That was me.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Holy, man, what the hell? I got up there and tried to tell them what it took to be a fullback at Texas, you know. She says, everybody leave class but Mr. Campbell.
Uh-oh.
And I'm saying, what? I mean, it's like everybody was on my case. First, I'm in the class because Roosevelt said so. It's easy. I give a speech that Wednesday, and she says, everybody leave class but me. And she asked me how serious was I about that class. And I said, oh, I like this. That lady taught me how to speak, how to handle myself, and all that.
And those are skills that you took later on in life.
That's right, because, you know, when I hit pro ball, all I had to do was do interviews and all that. Well, I learned all that right here on the 40 acres. I used to go and visit with her after class, after we eat at the dining hall, and after practice. She'd be waiting, and she'd school me, and she'd help me out. I had a ball at Texas.
So you win the Heisman. We're all watching.
Yes.
You put Tyler on the map. Back in then, Tyler was on the map for not reasons about football. It was more very segregated.
Yes.
You grew up in a segregated city. You're a decade before me, but you brought that city together when you won that Heisman.
You know what's amazing is there's so many great things, and Tyler had a lot of great things happen there, but there's so many great athletes came out of East Texas.
Yes, sir.
And they're still coming. I'm working on a project now of trying to put a Hall of Fame, a museum for the East Texas Hall of Fame for Tyler.
I think that would be great because you mentioned a lot
of them.
So
young people can see, you know, that all these people that they look and they admire, they started right like me, riding those rose fields, running in that sand with a dream of wanting to do this, wanting to do that.
And that is so true. And when we talk about your NFL career, you set records at Texas. and then you take the NFL by storm in 78 and 79 and 80. Your first 3 seasons, you run for 5,000 yards. That's unprecedented. And you and Bum Phillips got that Love You Blue movement going with the Oilers. Did you think you'd be that good that early in your career?
Well, when I before I got the pro ball, it was kind of an understanding that a guy that win the Heisman, they're just a so-so guy, So he was good in college. I wasn't really worried about that. I was more worried about making it on time, doing the right things, and that football going to take care of itself, because I believe that if you work for it and you prepared yourself, by the time the season started and you got with the team, it was all on go. I just started trying to do the right things. But I wanted to be that athlete, that person like Jim Brown was. I wanted to be the best. And in order for me to be the best, I had to stiff arm a guy. I had to knock down a guy different. And, it was, like I said, football was fun to me. It wasn't that hard to do, but I worked for it. And I don't want nobody to take this the wrong way, me saying it was easy, but it wasn't, even at Texas, it wasn't one of the main things I was concentrating on. The one thing I was concentrating on was getting a speech degree, a bachelor's in speech communication.
So you played 9 seasons.
Yes.
Hall of Fame career. They trade you to the Saints midway through the 84 season. And Bum is the coach of the Saints.
Yes.
And so you finish out all but your last 4 games with Bum. He resigned 4 games with 4 games left in 85, yes. And Wade, his son, took over. You come back in 86 to training camp, and then you retire.
I lost my interest in football, and there wasn't nothing wrong with that, because all good things comes to an end.
That's the truth. And you leave at age 31. You still had some gas in the tank, 2 young sons at the house, but you had a plan.
Yes.
How difficult were those post-retirement first few years? Because when I talk to retired athletes, they always say, I miss the guys more than I miss the game.
It's not so much of the game that you miss. It's just the things you miss, like on Sundays and Saturday nights. On Friday, you start saying, man, they getting ready to do this now. I bet you they in pregame meal. They running out of time. They getting the Angus tape right now. But you miss those phone calls. You don't feel a part of those guys anymore, because they still playing and everybody's still talking. Your name come up again. So you're trying to strive to break into a new system, which is life. One Wednesday, I went to have a meeting with Mr. Greer up in Cullen Bank. And he says, Earl, can we talk to you about something? I said, yeah, what's been messed up now? He says, Dr. Cunningham. I said, who is that? He said, the University of Texas. I said, oh yeah, what about Dr. Cunningham? Well, we've been talking, and we would like for you to go and maybe work at the university. I said, ho, no, I'm not interested in coaching nothing. They said, no, we're interested in you talking about going up, being like an ambassador for our university, talking to people and doing this. You're real good at it. Once again, I wasn't scared because I know how to talk, because that
little redhead lady.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it shows you how the world go around. So I got involved with the university, and it's been a great relationship.
It's well documented. The physical style of play took a toll on you physically.
Oh, yeah.
In post-retirement, numerous surgeries.
It cost a little bit something.
You paid a price.
Yeah.
You paid a price, and I know I've talked to your sons about this. Around 2009, you had a problem with painkillers, and your boys, Christian and Tyler, walked into the bedroom.
They saved my life. Next thing I know is raining one day. My boys have to come talk to me about going to something called rehab, and I thought that was something they did back in the bad guys, not me. But that's the best thing happened to me in my life, because now I spend 95% of my time trying to tell somebody else about not making that mistake and to be really bold with you.
But yeah, but for your boys to come to Pops, and they didn't want to.
I didn't like it.
I know, and they told me. They said he didn't like it, and Miss Renee said, listen to your sons.
Yeah.
And how important was that conversation? I mean, because not long ago, Earl, that's 09 is not, that's 12 years ago, and here we are today. How important was that?
I don't know. I think that was after raising my children and telling them we don't do drugs and we don't do those bad things in Austin. I mean, we raised right in the middle of Westlake. And I have them to understand we don't do drugs and we don't do this, and you know, Dad don't smoke, Mom don't smoke, and we're a family. But then they have to come talk to me about this, and I've been preaching this to them.
That's humbling.
It goes to show you that you never get too old to learn.
That's so true.
And it was really great. It was the best thing. It was hard though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And
it took about almost a year for me to get over that shameness. Mm-hmm. Once I found out they was more proud for me getting the help than it was doing what I was doing. I mean, now we like a family again, you know. I think they're proud as me as I am of them, and I'm very proud of them. And now we got grandkids, and we got, you know, all this not gold, but we all family now.
Man, you got a beautiful wife, you got a beautiful family, 4 grandkids and 1 on the way.
Yes.
1 on the way, and at 66, you've seen it all, you've done it all. What's on your bucket list? What has Earl Campbell not done that he wants to do?
I think no doubtly, being involved in Alcohol Anonymous, you know, you never, and I heard a guy say it the other night, you never really graduate. But you just keep doing these things and you keep asking God to keep you sober. That's what I do every day. We call it the new man or the new person. I keep wanting to do that. But I don't know, just living, being happy, you know. It's all about Messiah, Cheyenne, Reagan, Sage, and, you know, the little one that's coming. It's all about that now.
Well, man, it's such a pleasure to spend these moments with you.
Oh, it's always good to see you and to sit in this great room at the University of Texas. It's unbelievable. Pretty soon, Messiah and Cheyenne and Reagan, they'll all be running through here. Look at Pops.
Look at Pops.
Yeah.
Pops got his display.
Yeah.
Our thanks to Cedric Golden for hosting such a fantastic conversation. It's our honor to recognize Earl Campbell as the 2021 Jenkins Medal Sports Legend. We now turn to our medal winners, beginning with the award for annual achievement. This year's winner is Mitchell S. Jackson, an award-winning author and speaker. Jackson is a regular columnist for Esquire, and his work appears in outlets such as The New Yorker, The New York Times, Harper's, and Time Magazine. He is also the author of 2 celebrated books, Survival Math and Residue Years. He is being recognized with the 2021 Jenkins Medal for his story, 12 Years and a Life, published June 18, 2020 in Runner's World magazine. It is a heartbreaking account of the life and death of Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man who was jogging through a neighborhood in Georgia before being followed and killed by 3 white men. The story carries with it touches of Jackson's own experiences, and it demands that readers acknowledge Ahmaud Arbery was not merely a name on a tragic roll call, but a person whose humanity must be embraced if we are ever to achieve any sense of justice. It is an astonishingly good piece of writing, evidenced by it being recognized with the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for feature writing. It is our pleasure to award the 2021 Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sports Writing to Mitchell S. Jackson.
You know, it's crazy. I never thought that I was writing a sports story. And I didn't go into it thinking that either, because I didn't know about Mod's connection to sports but the first person I interviewed was his coach. And in that first conversation, he told me the story about that opens it when Mod hits the guy in practice kind of hard. And then the coach is like, yeah, man, don't do that here. Like, do that in the game. And then he hits him in the game. And once he told me that story, in my head, the structure guy is going, oh, that's my lead. Right. And so then once I knew that was my lead, I also knew that I wanted to land there. Right. So now I'm like, well, who was at Mod's last game and who can give me that information? And I'm trying to cobble together. So I had to read about, and luckily they covered that game because it was the last game of the season. So structurally, I heard that first story. That was the very first interview that I did. I heard that story and I thought it was so special. Like this little guy, it showed how much heart he had, how fearless he was, how much he cared about football. So when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is it. I knew immediately I'm going to open like this. And because I like recursive endings, I also knew that I had to end in that way. But I did not go in thinking, oh, I'm going to write a sports story, because I wasn't aware of his connection to, I knew about the running, but I wasn't aware of his connection to football.
Hey, Mitchell, Sarah Spain from ESPN and a former Jenkins Medal winner. Just wanted to reach out and say congratulations on this tremendous honor, which I'm sure is just one of a very, very crowded shelf of awards that you've won for this piece. It was incredible and moving. And not only I'm excited for you to add this very special honor to your list of accolades, but I'm excited for me and anybody else who's won it, that my work and their work is in any way now associated with that incredible piece that you wrote. I wish we could all be together celebrating this, hopefully sometime soon, but welcome to the family and congratulations.
I've always wanted to write about home. Very important to me. If you look at my books, my novel is set in Portland. It's a semi-autobiographical novel. If you look at my essay collection, Survival Math, also grounded in Portland and about my family and my community. So that's really important to me. So actually the story, the Arborist story, wasn't necessarily about home, but it was about an experience that I recognize. So that's really important to me, to not just to be writing, but to be writing something that I feel has gravitas, that has some kind of weight, that I have some kind of stake in. That's really, really important to me. And also to write about people who, to write about people's whole lives who usually only end up in the news when something happens to them or they've done something.
Hey, this is Chris Ballard out in California. Congratulations, Mitchell. An amazing story. And for those of you watching, Mitchell was kind enough to zoom into my class at Cal last year. Ended up being the highlight of the semester. Just providing encouragement to students and talking about how you can make the humanity come out in a story, which is, I think, what made 12 Minutes in a Life so powerful. The avid connoisseur of the McChicken sandwich with cheese, the ability to make us feel like we knew this young man, to let the story hit home. So congratulations, richly deserved, and wish we could all be there in person.
The first people that I talked to were his coach, Jason, and then his best friend. And it just so happened I called the coach, but they were riding in the car together. So I was asking the coach questions, and then his best friend was answering. And I was like, man, who is that in the car? And he was like, oh, that's his homeboy. And I was like, well, can I talk to him? And they were like, yeah. So then I set up an interview with him, and then I talked to him, and then he would mention someone. And I would say, well, I don't know them. I was like, would you mind, introducing me? And he would say, sure, man, I'll do that. And then I would talk to that person, and they would say a story. And I would say, well, I haven't talked to them. Like, do you mind? And so everyone was so generous. Like, each of them introduced me to another person.
Hey, Mitchell, congratulations on winning the Dan Jenkins Medal. There are so many lines in this piece that give me pause. They make me think and just really leave me in awe. They're so powerful. I feel like 2020 was such an incredibly sad year, and the killing of Ahmaud Arbery was a huge part of it. You shine a light on who he was, what his life meant to so many, and you wrote it with such amazing detail and compassion. At the same time, it made me feel so deeply sad about what we've lost. Thank you for doing this piece. It was profoundly necessary.
If it was just gonna be this thing happened to Ahmaud Arbery, I didn't want to write it. You know, if I couldn't find out something about who he was, the kind of people that were around him, what his struggles were, what his triumphs were, then it just didn't feel like a good use of time, because I knew other people were going to write that story. Plenty of people, I'm sure, have written that story, and I just wasn't interested in being that kind of echo.
Hey Mitchell, Dave SHEININ here. I just wanted to say congratulations, first of all, for an amazing and beautiful and heart-wrenching piece of journalism. I can't recall another piece that's broken my heart with every paragraph, and yet I just didn't want it to end. Just an extraordinary piece of work. So congratulations. And congratulations on winning the Jenkins Award this year. Much deserved honor. I'm sorry that you don't get a in-person ceremony, but I still hope that you get a lot out of it, certainly as I did. It's a wonderful and prestigious honor, and I'm proud to have you on the list of winners. So congratulations again.
You know, so many people won't watch that video, and understandably so. And I don't even necessarily think that they should, but I didn't want people to be able to look away from what had happened, because it is, to me, one of the most disturbing. I mean, you know, there's a long list, right? But to me, this is right up there with the most disturbing, because of the way that they pursued him, because of what he was doing, because of the way they left him out, because of the way the police reacted to a dead Black man in the street while they're questioning them, the fact that they let them go, you know, so like all of these things, to me, I didn't want people to be able to look away from that. And it's another reason why, to me, it's more, you know, it's creative nonfiction, because I'm also imagining it's not straight journalism, right? I'm trying to imagine what it was like for Ahmaud to be in those circumstances. If you talk about, so I definitely didn't want them to be able to look away, but then there's at the heart of it, I also want you to know, here's a full version, as full a version as I can give you in 6,000 words of this person's life. Because it's so easy to reduce us to, you know, if they reduced me to the worst thing I've ever done, I would just be a convict, you know, like, if in a lot of people, that probably is, you know, if a person finds out that I went to prison, like, that's going to be at the top of their mind, when that's like a thing that I did when I was 21 years old, and I've had so much of a life after that. And that's another thing that when I talked about home, like I recognize his story, like, you know, even the way that he, you know, got caught with the gun. And I'm like, well, so did I. But, you know, I've had 20 something years to kind of build another life after that. And he didn't get that same opportunity.
On behalf of all of us at Runner's World and Hearst, a huge congratulations to you, Mitch, for receiving the 2021 Dan Jenkins Award for Excellence in Sports Writing. Your story, 12 Minutes in a Life, about Ahmaud Arbery's last run was everything I'd hoped it would be when we first discussed the idea for Runner's World. You crafted both a heartbreaking tribute to a life cut short and a searing indictment of systemic racism in America. From the start, your novelist's sensibility and your compassion and empathy immersed readers in Ahmaud's world. In your hands, he became a three-dimensional person whose life and potential had meaning. And with a precision that belies the emotional weight of the story, you delivered the gut-punch truths that led to his murder. The result was a piece that landed squarely at the intersection of running and the shameful legacy of white supremacy in this country, an astonishing example of modern storytelling that helped drive the national conversation on racial injustice in 2020. This honor is so well-deserved. Congratulations again.
I'm always trying to figure out, because I write in this territory, right? Like, I mean, the way that Ahmaud was murdered was remarkable and distinct. But I've lost several friends to gun violence. And so I'm always trying to think, and you know, and I've been around people who those are our common friends, and we find a way to like smile in the midst of what is, you know, remarkable pain. And so I want that to be in my work, because we are more than our harms, you know, like we're more than the things that bring us down, and the resiliency that it takes to be able to kind of not necessarily move past it, but to kind of accept it, and then to also figure out a way to kind of have some levity in your life. That's really important to me. And I try to imbue that in everything that I write. Like, no matter how serious, I'm going to try to find a moment where I can lift it up a little bit.
Once again, congratulations to Mitchell S. Jackson for winning the Jenkins Medal for Annual Achievement. Turning our attention now to the Lifetime Achievement Award, what must it take to be anointed the curator of our baseball souls? Those are the words Tom Verducci used to describe Roger Angell in a 2014 Sports Illustrated feature. By then, Angell had been writing about baseball for well over half a century, having made his essays in The New Yorker mandatory reading for followers of the national pastime. Angell began writing for The New Yorker before World War II had ended, and his first essay about baseball appeared in 1962. Over the decades, he has covered the game at every level in every corner of the nation. His books include The Summer Game, 5 Seasons, Late Innings, Season Ticket, and Once More Around the Park. Among his many awards include the George Polk Award, the ESPN Penn Lifetime Achievement Award, and the J.G. Taylor Spink Award, which secured his place in the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. In short, no proper history of American sports writing, especially when it comes to baseball, is complete without him. We are thrilled to present the 2021 Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sports Writing to Roger Angell.
Well, I was very lucky because my father was a big baseball fan and grew up in Cleveland. He was born in, my father, Ernest Angell, was born in Cleveland in 1889. He and organized baseball sort of grew up at the same time. And when he was in his early teens, he was watching the first great Cleveland team with people like Addie Joss playing. So when I was about 10, he started taking me to ball games in New York. So I saw Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig again and again, the great Carl Hubbell. And I followed it all being just the right age. I followed everything about baseball all of a sudden. And I didn't make any decisions it's going to be my life. In fact, I never made that decision. When I did start writing about baseball for the New Yorker in the 60s, early 60s, my editor, I'd just gone to work there 4 or 5 years earlier, and my editor, William Shawn, who knew nothing about sports, nothing, realized we needed some sports. And we said, I think you know about baseball, would you go down to Florida maybe? And I think there's something called spring training. So I went down and I didn't know anything. I sat in the stands and wrote a piece called The Old Folks Behind Home, because everybody watching baseball down there was ancient. They're all retirees.
Congratulations, Roger Angell. I can think of nothing that's more fun than being in a lineup that has Dan Jenkins leading off and Roger Angell batting cleanup. I thank you too for the grace and elegance that you brought to baseball writing for decades. And I particularly love the fact that this old man is still there, still writing, still giving us inspiration. Thank you, Roger.
I was so lucky because the New Yorker was enormously successful back then and had a huge amount of advertising and endless space in the magazine. So if I began writing longer baseball pieces, like a huge piece about catching or something like this, there was room for 8 or 10, and even 10,000 words. which was not true in any other magazine. But I wrote about how the game is played, because it is so interesting and so difficult. It's the hardest game in the world to play well. It's maybe golf. I think baseball is harder. And I wrote about a lot of different aspects on it. I wrote a huge piece about catching called In the Fire, and talked to dozens of catchers and kept learning. And the whole thing about catchers is so interesting because they're the only people who are facing the other way. They're really running the game, if you think of it that way. But the hard thing about baseball is that it judges your performance more precisely, I believe, than in any other sport. And every single thing you do becomes a statistic, and your failures and your successes and your embarrassments and your little tiny moments of triumph are all written down, and fans can see them.
When I think of first encountering Roger Angell when I was a young sports writer, I'm reminded of just the love of language, the power of observation, the way he brought patience to unpacking the story that he was telling, and just this idea that you could say anything. You could imagine anything when you were covering a sporting event. To describe a shortstop as playing the position as if he were a croquet wicket. Just the passion he brought to this sport he loved, baseball, I think was a lesson to me that any subject in the world of sports was worthy of that respect and enthusiasm. To think that he devoted such an extraordinary footprint of a life to this game, baseball, and that he's still writing to this day is such a testament to him and his great career.
In time, I connected myself with a pitcher named Ron Goebel and his girlfriend, Linda Kittle. Linda Kittle wrote to me while he was pitching in Boise, Idaho, his only season in Major League Ball. And Linda said, "We've given you our lives." And this, for a writer, is something you think about all the time. What have you done with what these people have told you about themselves? Janet Malcolm wrote a piece that basically says that we are shamelessly taking advantage of that. I'm not sure that it's always so shameless. But it's a heavy burden. You're writing about human lives, and people have an intense part of their existence, and you have to do it with respect and attention and get the details right.
Roger Angell is simply astonishing. What a writer. The grace and dignity, the words he chose to write about his specialty, baseball. The fact that he even writes about sports is such a gift. He came from the world of fiction. He's novels, short stories, editing. His craft and care for words is just always been a role model for me. The New Yorker is a magic place, and he's a magical writer. To think he wrote his first story for them during World War II, that's wonderful. I read him when I was a kid, and I'll read him now that I'm an old buzzard. Roger, all I can say is, you deserve this more than anything. Congratulations.
I'm amazed at the amount of work I did, but it was, as I say, it wasn't work. It was just the next thing. And as I said at the beginning, I never thought of baseball as something. Here's something I could really do a lot with. I never thought that way. I just was something else. The next game, the next idea, the next team, the next player that drew me on.
Once again, please join us in congratulating this year's honorees. Jenkins Medal Sports Legend Earl Campbell, Annual Achievement winner Mitchell S. Jackson, and Lifetime Achievement winner Roger Angell. We are honored to celebrate the legacy of Dan Jenkins and recognize each of you for your achievements. On behalf of the Center for Sports Communication and Media and the Moody College of Communication at the University of Texas at Austin, thanks to everyone for watching. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook And watch for us for our other programs, including the McGarr Symposium on Sports and Society and the Frank DeFord Lecture in Sports Journalism. We're already looking forward to the Jenkins Medal Ceremony in 2022, when we hope to see all of you here in Austin.